Welcome back to The Betrayed. This is Drew Williams.
This is Taryn.
Thank you for listening, liking, commenting, and subscribing. We really appreciate those reviews on Apple Podcasts. And thank you guys again for the continued support and that hashtag BananaCats. So today we have a guest with a very tragic story that I think is best that we just let her tell it. I would like to welcome Janeece Smith.
Welcome, Janeece.
Good evening. How are you guys?
Very well.
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm still here today, and some days that's just enough right now.
I understand that. So I want you to tell your story, but first and foremost, what brought you to Gina? How did you find us?
Gina sent me a friend request on Facebook, and I click on their profile and I scroll. And I looked and I went, "You're actually a real person? You do something? Okay." So I accepted it.
That's and we had an idea that might have been what it was. G reaches out to a lot of people.
Yeah, and then I thought about it for a couple of days, and I looked through the profile again because the Betrayed caught my attention, because I'm like, oh, I know what betrayal is. And so I looked through at what she was doing, and then I just sent her a message and said, if you want to hear more.
Yeah, and I think I've read some of that conversation. Do you just want to start? I don't know where you want to start with this story. Do you want to start with what the tragedy was and move back, or do you want to start at the beginning?
I don't know where to start. That was something I told her. I don't know where to start. Well, where do you tell a 10-year story or 14-year story that ends up in the murder of your boyfriend? Where do you start?
Well, that's a perfect starting right there. That was let's start. What was the actual event that happened, the tragic event that happened? And then maybe we can go back from there, and you can go from the beginning there.
On June 16th, 2019, my boyfriend was murdered in front of me. He, a gentleman, and he ain't no gentleman. Why did I say that? Because I like to be polite. That's why. A fornicating piece of fecal matter, to be honest with you, decided to take his life, and he blocked the road, instigated a physical confrontation with him. And when he got hit back, which he knew he was going to, he knew he couldn't win a physical fight against him, because Mark was not, he would run around the mountain and tell people, I'm not a fighter. So, I'm just going to kill people. This is what he had told people for 10 years. He went on another guy's property, assaulted him, and pulled a gun on him because he didn't want to lose a fist fight. So he picked a fist fight with Roger, and when he got hit back, he grabbed his gun that was strategically placed on the dash of his truck right inside, the mirror there, right there. And the first time he shot him between the legs, and the second time he shot him in the head, and it was 35 feet in front of me. I was running to him. I stopped because of the gun discharging.
My heart, first of all, goes out to you. I'm so sorry that all that happened.
Yes, sorry for your loss.
So, how long had you guys known each other? Can you start from there and what led up to, I guess, the tragedy, the murder? Can you start there? Did you guys start out on? Were you good ground when you guys first met each other, or was it weird right from the beginning?
That's a funny story. I am a real estate broker. I work for Klickitat Valley Realty over in Goldendale, Washington. I've been Klickitat County's #1 land sales broker since my first year in real estate. That's what I do. I sell land. I specialize remote secluded, hunting property, vacation, all that wonderful doomsday prepper stuff. I work a lot with doomsday preppers. And so I have a doomsday prepper site, and I have always targeted that. Well, because of that, of course, he called me concerning he wanted to purchase a piece of property in Bickleton, Roosevelt, Washington, because he wanted to be somewhere remote. And I said, okay. I said, so he says, well, I've looked at these properties that you have online, and I had properties at the end of Pine Creek, and then there were properties up Timber and Jensen Quarry, but I had 110 and 120, but then Cliff Fleury had Easter Acres LLCs, which was about 27, 28, 20-acre parcels. And they are the parcels that lied between Timber and Jensen Quarry, Ronib, Mac Lane, and that area. It's the area of, that's where Roger ended up buying from me. That's how Roger and I met as well. He bought one of those pieces from me. So when Mark come to look at property, we were going to meet and go together. And he says, well, let me drive. And he went out and he did Pine Creek Road. And then he come back and he went up Timber Road and he drove around over there. And he got over to the 10-acre parcel that he was looking at that I had, but he was just about a couple of parcels south of it. And he knew he didn't get to it. So he called me and he says, hey, can you meet me? And he says, you know, my truck going that way, it was rough on it. And I said, I'll throw the four-wheelers on the flatbed. We'll run in, not a problem. And so we met on Jensen Quarry Road and we went up Jensen Quarry because at this time he had seen Pine Creek. So he knew that he didn't want to be down there because he was concerned about the 6-mile gravel road. And to live in at the end of Pine Creek is pretty rough. It's, 4,000 elevation. You're talking, I've seen in excess of 10-foot snow drifts, snowmobile, you better be able to ride one. But over on Timber and Jensen Quarry, we could have 5-foot drifts, but you can get out of them reasonably. And so we started looking up Timber. He looked at the 20 that I had. He was complaining it was out of his price range. He still liked the 10. And the other 20s that were the ones that Cliff Fleury had from Easter Acres, the problem with them was at the time when the other real estate broker made the deal, he purchased the individual 20s, but they did it without a deed release clause on the real estate contract. So if you were to sell 120, each 20 would still have a $250,000 or whatever note on it. I couldn't get an individual deed released from the overall contract total. So no buyers wanted to buy them, but everybody looked at them. And that's how I ended up with the account. But this was before I had the account. So I should, show it to him. And when we meet, so we meet out there to get in the truck, and he gets in the truck and we're, starting to drive up the road, and it's, kind of like, he tells me he's went down Pine Creek. He goes through all that. And this part, I would never forget this ride in the truck, because right about then, this guy looks at you and he looks at me. And he's like, I had to get out of Idaho because I was fighting with the neighbor and I was going to kill him if I didn't leave. And he goes, so, I thought, well, I'll go down to Oregon to over there. He says, well, I got down there and I got to fighting with the other neighbor and I was going to kill him. He says, I need to be remote. And I'm like, okay. So this was my client from the first time, from this first contact that was my client that wants to kill people. That's been the thing with me and him. It's like, okay. But on the other hand, in so many aspects, he kind of made sense, because he's like, I shouldn't be in the city. I have a hard time getting along with people. I have a hard time with neighbors. And I was like, well, maybe this is a better place for you, somewhere where you don't have as many people. You're not listening to the neighbor take their trash can in and out. You're not fighting with the homeowners association. Because as a real estate broker, the reason why I sell a lot of property in rural areas is because of his same complaints. The difference between how they articulated that to me and how he articulated that to me were two different things. He wanted to kill people. Other people, they were just mad and wanted to go yell at the HOA guy or yell at the neighbor for waking him up at 3 or 4 in the morning with the trash can or some bullshit like that, right? Which is annoying, but I get it. So on the other hand, I understood what he was saying. And I was like, well, hey, at least you're thinking of your community. I'm trying to find positive. I do try to find positive in things, because if you don't, you're going to be one miserable son of a bitch.
Absolutely.
So I'm trying to find some positive in it. Okay, look, this guy's trying to protect himself. He's trying to protect people. He gets that he can't handle them. Okay, so we're good. So we get back, we unload the four-wheelers, we talk the whole time. He can spit an RCW and darn near give you the verbatim of what it is about easements, being landlocked, the 1979 law about all of that. Very, very educated in, okay, well, where's the easement and how's that run? Is the road a road that you could use because of adverse possession? He knew. There was, you weren't going to bullshit him about any of that. And his ex-wife, he said, was a property manager and one time was a real estate broker. And after talking to him, pretty clear he was not stupid. And so it was intriguing to talk with him, because I don't meet a lot of buyers that actually understand what I do. You don't meet people that understand the difference between an exclusive, a non-exclusive, a public easement, a right-of-way. People don't understand that sometimes you get a title report on a property and somebody else owns all your trees. And you're standing there going, and where did that come from? And the property owner's like, what do you mean somebody else owns my trees? So it sometimes it's nice when you have somebody that actually can understand that. So he was always a memorable person for a few reasons.
He was relatable.
And exactly. We could talk about it. And he was talking about when he was up in Idaho, the reason why he had to get out of there was because something over an easement. But it was always hard to exactly understand what the problem really was, because he talks in circles. And so I never really understood it, other than it was a problem accessing property, because he never went into detail if there was a fist fight or quite what there was. I know he told me there was a discharge of a firearm to let them know that, he was whatever. I don't know if he was threatening them or exactly what he was doing, but I do remember that. And it's just kind of went from there. So he bought the property. In the course of buying the property, of course, because he was well educated in it, the most important thing, and the only thing in my contract that was a contingency, was a review of the title report and the easement. So I had arranged for him to have a phone call with the head gal at the title company at AmeriTitle in White Salmon. And then I had her assistant send me an email confirming that the phone call had happened and they had answered all his questions and blah, 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 blah. We're good to go. We're closing. We closed the deal in 14 days from the time him and I met till the time like we closed it was, we're done. And he started, building his place out there. Now, there's some stuff that I know now that I didn't know then. So this was, we closed on his place December 28th, 2009. And I'm going to jump back a hair. In 2006 is when, September of 2006 is when Easter Acres purchased the property between Jensen Quarry Road, Timber, and Mack Lane. When they purchased that property, he made Roger Swaggart, Noel Peralt, and Jason Tolman kind of his little local managers, because he traveled between Vancouver and Las Vegas. The guy was a real estate entrepreneur. That's what he did. He bought the property, said, hey, I'm going to make a hunting club and we're going to sell it. It's what it is. And so Roger and Noel and Tolman had been going out there since 2000. Let's see, that was 2006. So 2007 to 2009. So there's over 2 years there where they're out there utilizing this 640 acres that they're managing for this other gentleman. And Mark comes through there in January of 2010. And everybody in the county knows, we're all on the East End, knows the story of him in the flatbed trailer. If you buy property in Bickleton, everyone tries to build in the winter. Everyone's got a story of sticking the truck to the axles and all your building supplies. And it's kind of, it's when you get stuck, you get the joke from everybody else. It says, "Ha, welcome to the neighborhood. You've been initiated," because you've had to walk, you've had to call and to have somebody come get you out. One time, the one neighbor, it ended up with a tractor and a 12,000-pound winch to get him out. So there's, that's everybody's kind of initiation thing to the area. Did you get stuck yet? Yeah, hey, so he was stuck. And of course, here comes Roger checking on the property. He's stuck in the middle of it on a road that goes through it. And he says, "Hey, I was going this way, taking my building supplies in." This is what Mark was telling Roger. And Roger's kind of like, "Hey, yeah, the wrong time of the year." And so they were kind of joking about it. And so, of course, Roger was teasing him because, "Oh, you got stuck. You bought property in here because you buy property and you get stuck." So it's the thing. And he says, "I don't mind you bringing supplies through here. If you're living in here and you're going to be building, hey, you know what? You let me know if you see somebody on here and da-da-da-da-da." And so they met that was January of 2010. And the only reason why it's a big memory to me, because there's a big joke about when you get stuck in the mud. I can tell you the story of every one of my clients that's bought their property and got their truck stuck, because it's a thing. And even me, more than once. And so he got his truck out, of course, and he started building. But Roger gave him permission. And he told Roger that he knew his easement was over off of timber, and where all that was, there was no disagreement about any of that until the fall of 2015. There were a lot of things that happened in the fall of 2015 when everything seemed to really start to go sketchy. I was, at that time, I listed the Run Amok Ranch, and, that's 40 something parcels. I'm looking at selling, a $2.5 million deal, 40 something parcels. 35 of them would be sharing the legal access on Jensen Quarry Road. We got a lot of motive. I'm just getting started. So he would have had to have shared the road. So in 2015, I take that and I have my two assistants, my one assistant, which is she's a black girl and a white girl. And we're out there and we're doing our thing in the woods like people are supposed to. Running around, we have our GPSs, we're in my side-by-side, we're, all right, one's got a map, one's driving, and the other one's going the corners that way. And so we find them and we take pictures and, we go back to my cabin and we go over to the neighbors and we visit with them. We have a nice evening. Mark comes over and, bullshits with my assistants. They tell him, about what we've been doing. He says, "Oh, I seen you," because his property abuts mine, or abuts the property that we were working on. His is about a mile or so away from mine. And so he's, socializing with them. So he knows who my assistants are. He knows, how they got jobs with me. They're just, they go through all of this stuff. And he continues to he always comes to my property. And it doesn't matter if my aunt and I literally tested this theory. She says, "Let's not go up there till 10 o'clock tonight. Maybe he won't show up." He showed up at 10:30. And so she was real freaked out back then because I could not arrive at my property. And if I did, within an hour, he was there. I don't care what time of the night it was, what day of the week it was. And because I'm a real estate broker, I don't have a real set schedule. And a lot of people are off on the weekends. So I work on the weekends. So then I take a day off on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. But it's random. You throw a coin in the air when I'm going to do it. It's like, hey, I don't have to respond to a purchase and sale agreement till Thursday. So if we're back by Wednesday, we're good. Let's go. And I can go get a couple of days. And every time he would come over, he just kept coming over and kept coming over. It didn't matter what I did. And, then on my birthday, I left my ex-husband. And that was 4 days before my birthday. And we were going to have a big party at the cabin. And so I said, yeah, probably not a good time to have me intoxicated around a bunch of people right now. So I canceled the party and called my girlfriend, Anita, and I said, you and I and a fifth of whiskey, we'll be good. So that's exactly what we did. That's all I wanted to do for my birthday. I wanted to go up and hang on my own 60 acres that I paid for, that I worked hard, you know, and I waited for that piece. You have no idea how bad I wanted my own piece of heaven out there. And I got it. And it's like, I just want to go out and sit on my porch and drink a goddamn bottle of whiskey and listen to the coyotes and whatever goes by and howl at the moon or whatever it is and shake this shit so I can go back to work, you know, and life. Guess who shows up? And he waits till I'm a little too much into the whiskey. And he starts off with making sexual innuendo, you know, things like, well, why don't I take you girls back to my place and we can have a menage a trois? And he kept saying these other things. And I was pretty intoxicated. I remember what I did that part. I remember him saying that because that was the part that tripped my trigger. I'm like, what? You know, what do you, excuse me? I just want to get drunk. Did you get my voice message? Oh, I didn't get your message because I had called him and left him a message and we had canceled the party. And I think I sent him a text too. I'm not for sure, but I know I left him a voicemail. And I asked him if he got it and he said no. And I was like, okay. And so he kind of stayed doing that. He wouldn't quit. He kept going. And I kept trying to ignore him. And finally I blew. And I'm like, look, ain't never going to happen. You know, you and I, not going to happen. And if there's anybody on this mountain that I would ever date, it would be Roger Swaggart. I said that. I went, now I wished I wouldn't have, but I did. And I said, so you can just get that shit out of your head right now. You know, I'm a half a fifth of whiskey later. You're going to get pretty brutal from me at that point. Especially when I'm mad at my ex-husband or soon to be ex-husband, right? You're going to try me? Really? Come on. So I was not very pleasant. And my friend Anita is not someone who like gets offended. You know, we are all about dirty jokes and humor and you know, let's have a good time. You know, she was over there just like looking at me like, and I'm like looking at her going, he was talking so in such a sexual manner that she was getting upset and she was uncomfortable. I have known that woman 20 years. I've never seen anybody make her uncomfortable like that.
That's a scary sign.
Yeah. And I'm like, and I've heard some people say some pretty raunchy shit to her. Her and I we went down and entered in watermelon wrestling one time. We're not no panty weights. We're not afraid, you know. So for her to I was like, so we finally got shitty enough. I got shitty enough. He finally left because I'm just like, don't you fucking get it? I want to drink this fucking bottle and leave. You know, I hate men right now. Get the fuck off my property. What do you want me to say? And then afterwards, you know, a couple days later, I was like, I might have been a little harsh because I can be that way. I am very blunt. And sometimes people take it wrong. I'm not trying to be rude. I'm just trying to make sure you understand what I'm saying. I always like it. And a couple days later, I was kind of like, okay, so I wasn't quite sure what to do. But in September, I was meeting Roger, Noel, and them up there because we were all planning to go to a family reunion in that September. And the family reunion is a big party that happens in Cleveland. It's some locals that have it, but we were going because we were friends of theirs. And so Roger's telling me on the phone, well, hey, you know, we got to go over to Mark Allen's and find out what time so we can all carpool. And I'm like, yeah, can you let me go talk to him first? And I didn't tell Roger what had happened. We didn't tell him. So I went over and I caught Mark up there and I said, Mark, I just want you to understand something. At the end of the day, we're friends. Please understand, on my birthday, I was just apologizing.
Yeah.
You're catching me on my birthday at my cabin. I'm drunk. I'm mad at my ex-husband. If I upset you or hurt your feelings or anything like that, I'm sorry. We're friends. You're my neighbor. Are we good? I thought that was appropriate. Probably,
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a decent apology. I mean, it's cordial.
I know I didn't need to apologize because he was on my property and
he's being a weirdo.
Yeah, but I'm trying to. Yeah, exactly. But I'm trying to keep the peace, because life is better when everybody's happy, So trying to keep the peace, and I know that I got to ride with him and them and all of this, there, and we're going to do this party, and it's like, we all not live on this mountain. We're all part of this mountain, so we need to get along, and I will just be the one to apologize. So I did it. And then I had to tell Roger and Noel, by the way, he might have been a little mad at me. And they asked what happened. And I told them. And of course, they're like, well, why are you apologizing? And I said, well, because I want peace on the mountain. And Roger says, I respect you for that. He goes, you shouldn't have apologized, but I respect you for doing it for the reason you did it. I get that. So we went over to his place. He said, yeah, another week later, yeah, he was going to go carpool, and the four of us were going to go into the party together. And then we're waiting. He doesn't show up. So we finally go in, we get in there. They're like, you guys are an hour and a half late. And we're like, yeah, we were waiting on Mark Allen. He was supposed to be there so we could carpool. And they're like, oh, he was here at 3:00 this afternoon and left. And we're like, and Noel and Roger are like, well, what's that all about? Because we went over and I said, I apologized before he told you guys, I said, I don't know. Don't blame this on me. I tried. So then Mark still kept coming over to Roger's place or Noel's place or my place. We never were going to his place. He kept coming. And we would send him a text message and let him know when we were coming sometimes. Roger, I know, did. Noel would sometimes I would. We would say, hey, we'll be up, or we're going to have a party. So he would get invites. Not every time we went, but when there was a function, when we had friends coming up and we were doing some wood cutting or, you know what I mean? Something special. But even when there wasn't special, you couldn't get rid of him because he was still showing up, even though you were texting him and inviting him to things. At this time, he had already been in a fight with the neighbor Hayes, and I didn't know Hayes. I didn't know Dan Johnson. I didn't know any of them till this fall of 2015. I met them kind of in the spring of like 2015, and they were a couple of parcels over from me. But Mark Allen had been telling me for years how horrible they were and stuff, so I didn't make it a point to go meet them. I alienated them intentionally instead of going because of what he was telling me. I was believing him. Not a good thing to do. But finally, my ex-husband had ran into them twice. And both times he says, something ain't right. And he said, need to go talk to them a little more. And about that same time in 2015, there was side-by-side tracks that were going on this back road that goes through my property and that goes and accesses the backside of Mark and Kelly Hayes's. Hayes is the guy he pulled the gun on and assaulted on his property. And my ex-husband says, there's only one person on this mountain with a side-by-side, and that's him, Mark Allen. I said, yes. He says, what is he doing running down that road? I said, well, I don't know. I don't know. And Mark shows up like clockwork. So Joe goes over there. He goes, you been going down there? Nope, those aren't my tracks. Nope. Joe says, okay. He leaves. Joe stands there, looks at his side-by-side tracks, runs down to the road, looks at the side-by-side tracks, comes back to me and says, he lied. He says, I don't want him around. He lied to me. And I said, look, Joe, he's our neighbor. we just need to keep peace. So Joe says, well, here's what we'll do. I'm going to go down there and I'm going to drop and drag trees across that road. And I'm not going to let, we're not just going to let him do this, but I'll meet you in the middle kind of. I'll go block the road so he can't use it. And then we won't have to tell him not to. Right. So we did that. And then he stopped using the road. Joe and I got a divorce, and then we had to clear the road out again so that we could go back to using it. But the reason why we blocked the road was because my ex-husband was concerned with why he was using the road. He was coming to my place. He was threatening to kill Mark Hayes, anybody who got in his way. He was reciting RCWs to us, telling us how to get away with murder. That's not okay.
He's got creepy vibes the entire time. From like day one, it sounds like he's just weird vibes from him.
It's not right. Yes, there's some things just weren't right. He says, I deal with a lot of like the doomsday prepper stuff. So we have a lot of conversations about, self-defense and all this other stuff, about, what are you going to do if you got to deal with a guy in front of you, who's charging you, and you've got to defend yourself and things like that. And so Mark would always talk about how he used to teach self-defense. He's taught all this other stuff. And so he's out there, he wants to show my party goers how to break chokeholds. Well, that's cool. Because now you just told these guys under oath that my boyfriend had you in a chokehold, yet you attended how many of my parties and was out there showing people how to break one. And you're trying to tell me now that he had you in one till you were blacking out when you got like how many groups of people at my place? How to get out of one? Oh, you're a peach. You're a peach. So he's doing this. And at the time when he's teaching them to break the chokeholds, it's cool. Because you're learning how to defend yourself. You're learning how to take care of yourself. When he's telling you how you approach and, you can't, when you're fighting with somebody, you got to be like this. You don't face them like this. I mean, he was really detailed in say, not hand-to-hand combat, but in a self-defense type manner, if somebody was trying to come on your property and, steal from you or harm you or something like that. So yeah, lots of those conversations. Part of my party goers were clients that were literally doomsday preppers that bought property up there. And so there was a lot of interesting conversations like that. We did a lot of talks about your Second Amendment and things like that. And the part that was always the hardest for a lot of people was, like, well, if you're going to kill somebody, here's how you legally do it. And he just starts, and it's like, that's just shit you don't say. Why would you be planning to legally kill somebody? If you're defending yourself, you're already legally killing them. So why would you need to take steps to plan?
Yeah, it's a little strange. Now,
right?
That's what I
keep thinking. I mean, yeah.
So, by 2015, did you know that he had already had physical confrontations with other neighbors?
I found out in March because, see, he got in his fight with Mark Hayes February of 2014. And it was about a month after that, he came to my cabin and he told me about the fight. But I didn't know about the confrontations with the other neighbors. None of us did, because they happened out in the back 40. And, these people up there, if they have a brush with somebody, they'll just try to move on. So you don't really hear about it unless you assault 4 or 5 neighbors, you start hearing about it. You know what I mean? You're going to have to really do something to really hear about it. And so it wasn't until I made friends with Mark Hayes that I started to learn about the other incidences that weren't involving him. that were involving the other neighbors. And, you know, a lot of these people, they've owned their property for 20 years. He moves in on top of them. He was the city guy that moved in on top of the country folk and went to terrorizing this community. And I don't get it. I just don't understand. I don't get it. At any time, they could have went in there and asked those neighbors and had gathered statements from I don't know how many people concerning him threatening people, assaulting people, pulling guns on people. I begged the sheriff's department twice, only twice, to do it. Once in January of 2018 and once in August of 2018. Mark Allen himself called the sheriff's department multiple times and said under oath multiple times that he had begged Bob Songers to get involved before he was going to have to do something back to us.
And those who are listening,
he says that.
Mark is free currently right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I don't think a lot of people realize that. This man that murdered somebody in cold blood right in front of her is still a free man right now. Yes. So I have a few questions about that, if you don't mind me just interjecting real quick. What is the excuse? Is it a stand your ground law? Is it something like that they're using as a defense to get away, that his lawyers are using as a way to get away with murder? Like, what do you think's going on?
I have been told that the video that I took on the scene cleared Mark. They say I have been told that my video shows Roger committing a felony assault. And I have been told that Roger was choking Mark and he had no choice but to, defend himself. That's what I've been told. The sheriff's department does not want to talk to me.
Is there any relationship between Mark and people at the sheriff's department? Is there a reason why he would have strings being pulled over there? And is that something you can answer? And if you can't, I understand.
If I knew that answer, I might understand more of why things have happened the way they've happened. I wish I knew that. I don't believe that there are. I believe that he is just a master manipulator. And I believe that because when I got to know Mark and Kelly Hayes and then found out about what happened with some of the other neighbors and then what I started to see firsthand, I had come to realize that I had let him play me a little too far. And then I watched him just escalate it worse. And so this is hard for me to say. This is something that has been really difficult for me to deal with. I have had to come to terms with the fact that he used my gender to target me by claiming I was this drama queen that was overreacting, that was making this big deal, or whatever about his gun. Well, no, it wasn't his gun. It was his behavior I was concerned about. A gun is a tool, just like a car. It's a tool. It's your behavior that makes you dangerous, not your tool. A tool can be used for good or bad, almost any tool.
Yep.
It's all in the person that holds it. So I'm, he's got problems. It's just not right.
So is there no chance at this point, could he get recharged with anything, or is he in the
He was never charged.
He was never charged at all. So those
No,
interview videos that
they didn't investigate. That's the only interviews they did. And they took a little audio from me on the scene, and when I tried to show them what happened, to walk them through, they literally said, no, we got to wrap this scene up, and hauled me off the scene and hauled me away.
Yeah, I watched some of those videos, and being someone that, I know more now talking to you and things like that, I got the vibe of sleazeball, lying sleazeball, and I don't know how officers sitting there unless he had some type of tie to them. Like, or is it just money that he has? Like, it's
He
I'm
has no
very,
money.
very sorry. I'm very, very sorry.
The part that concerns me is that he was like, she was a drama queen. A drama queen. I was making a big deal of him threatening, this gun thing. Well, no, I was getting upset because he was endangering my community. He's running up and down the road. He ran a 12-year-old girl off the road on her fucking four-wheeler. Are you kidding me? In what fucking county is that acceptable? Because it's acceptable in Klickitat County. Just go ask the girl. She's still alive, thank God. After he's ran her off the road in the vehicle with her father more than once, and he still has gotten away with it.
Now, what's the reputation of the sheriff's department there? Did you have issues with them before any of this? Have they had a reputation of not caring? Maybe you got some answers for me.
Oh, I do. And so, I had a great relationship with the sheriff's department, with the ex-sitting sheriff. I actually had coffee with him a couple times a week, because he would hit coffee shops, talk to people. That's what they're supposed to do, is talk to
A good
people.
sheriff does.
Exactly. And kind of, know more of what's going on. A good sheriff doesn't let people come in and give them lip service and then just believe them. You actually go talk to people. So then everything was fine when he was sheriff. When he left, well, it hasn't been so fun. So I made contact with him in January because I told them that the information that I give the posse deputies, I didn't want released, because the last time somebody gave that same information, Mark Allen went over on their property. He assaulted them. There's a full report. He pulled a gun on them, and there was witnesses, and they never, the problem is that case was never tried because the prosecutor, who is the prosecutor on Roger's case, he didn't want to prosecute that case either.
That's very suspect and weird. It's
so
very...
Two sheriffs, same prosecutor, and I still can't get charges on this guy. The neighbors can't get charges on him for anything that he has done to them. Nobody can get them to do anything to him for nothing. No one can figure out why.
Yeah, that's a horrible feeling, considering how much it escalated to the point where you guys lost live. And I mean, it's almost one of those things. It's like, where do you turn to next?
Who do you call?
Is there a way for you to go the FBI route and see?
I filed with the FBI, the DOJ, and the FBI, the DOJ, and the AGO in July of 2018 because somebody decided they wanted to use an anonymous texting app to harass my ex-husband. They claimed that I did it. They claimed that they were me and my girlfriends. And then they broke into his house and took this $10,000 that he had offered to me. They never told me. I found out in May of the next year. Well, then I call the sheriff's department. This deputy comes on. He's shitty as hell. And he says to me, nothing's been done to you. So he refused to take my police report. We're not taking it. I'm like, but my identity was, used and is being blamed. Nope. So I called the Pasco Police Department because at that time we were in transition. My ex-husband and I had split up. My stuff was in Pasco at Roger's house, but we lived between the Pasco house and the Bickleton cabin, and we were looking for the place that I own now here in Goldendale, so that my daughter could go to school and be by her dad and things like that. So they're refusing to do anything. The Pasco police guy calls Klickitat. Klickitat says they're 99% sure that I did it. They don't investigate. They don't nothing. So I go back and I call the ex-sitting sheriff and I said, hey, when you got time, can we sit down a minute? I don't know what to do. So he says, he said, I'm flying into town. He was out of town. He flew into town. We met down at the 76 station where we had coffee. And I told him what happened. And he says, he goes, you're being treated as a woman scorned, getting even with her ex-husband more than likely. So you're going to have to break that whole gender thing of being a woman scorned. And I'm like, really? He goes, oh yeah, that's, because it happens. He goes, it does. You just have to let them know that you're not one of them. So file with the FBI, the cybersecurity down in Portland, file with the age, just start filing. Get somebody's attention, And I said, well, what do you want me to tell them? He goes, tell them what you told me. I learned on this day that X, Y, and Z happened. This is my steps with law enforcement. They are refusing. I can't get any help. Can you help me? So that's what I did. In July of 2018, a year before Roger was murdered, I filed against the sheriff's department with multiple agencies. And never one time have I heard one word back from any agency concerning any of those complaints till this day.
It's when you hear police departments doing things like this is why people don't trust police. And we're not
Exactly.
an anti-cop podcast. We want cops to go out and get pedophiles and things like that. But when you
we need our cops.
Yeah, you need good cops, and we've interviewed good cops on here before, and we've had good bounty hunters, a lot of good law enforcement.
Yeah.
But these type of stories and situations are exactly why people don't trust them. And I'm sorry, I don't even know where to go at that point. Like you must feel exhausted from going every outlet and just everyone turning their back on you. It's one of those things. Yeah, you're heartbroken. You don't know where to go, and it's one of those things. It's such a hard situation.
You beg Keeper News when they're trying to get information from you to put in their paper, and you're like, look, I'm telling you, you need to talk to these neighbors because the sheriff's department is not giving you accurate information. That shit you're releasing is a lie. And they won't even listen to you because, well, the law enforcement officer said it. Well, I don't give a fuck what he says. He's telling you they almost collided, and I got pictures showing there's no way in hell they almost collided. You have a copy of them as well. It's like where his skid marks were, even if he didn't stop, he would have went right on by Roger's truck. So don't give me no bullshit that they almost collided. And I was telling the guy on the Facebook Messenger, there's more to the story. And I sent a little clip of that picture. And a few other of our friends were telling them, hey, we're telling you, you're not getting the truth. And they just flat out ignored us. That's just when you call the governor's office,
You've exhausted every avenue.
Very well.
You've exhausted every avenue.
I'm tired.
Yeah, you're tired. And it's one of those things. It's like all you can do now is tell your story and just keep retelling it, which has got to be at the same time so heartbreaking because you got to bring back all these crazy past bad years. And if we have law enforcement listening, like this is exactly why people don't trust you. I think I'm probably out of the group the most anti-cop. I don't want to call myself anti-cop, but I've had a lot of problems with bad police officers. But then
see, I haven't, so this kills me because I haven't, and
yeah, and it's such a real situation, and nobody in the power is taking the proper road to hear the entire story. And you got a man that's a murderer. Now, does he still live up around you guys?
I can't go to my cabin.
You can't even go up there. See, that is...
half of our neighbors can't go to their property.
So he's basically taken the mountain from everybody. I mean, essentially. I mean, people they don't even want to go up that way.
And then the ones that are in the last few weeks have been assaulted and packing their shit up and leaving because they say he's threatening to kill anybody that gets in his way, and they were coming on their property and getting confrontational and
It's what I just can't believe that somebody who has done
And they
so.
I
can't
call
call
the
the cops
cops.
on them either.
They don't take police reports from us. They only take them from him.
That's wrong. Like that. There's so many
Yeah,
levels.
go ask them for police reports. You're gonna find out how fast you can get some. There are none.
Yeah, that's.
I hauled him in front of the guy from the newspaper because they weren't making police reports. And there still isn't one. It's a good thing I sent an email the next day recounting our conversation.
Yeah, that's on your side. You got to document and keep documents of everything because they obviously don't want to help. Now,
And I have never in my life had cops behave like that. Never. I have worked for cops. I train horses for border security, riot control, all this shit, until I retired and started selling real estate. I worked with cops, with mounted posse cops, prepping horses to do crowd and all this other stuff.
yeah, those.
I
You obviously are from that area. Like I looked up a little
am
bit.
betrayed by them, and I just
Now, have you exhausted the route of maybe going lawyer wise because somebody who has
they want like a $50,000 retainer because they got to do all this research and they got to investigate and try to sue a sheriff and a prosecutor. Do you know how hard it is to hold those two people accountable? And I voted for them.
Well, that's one of the problems right now that's going on in this nation is you got a lot of people in power that have that have no accountability. I mean, that's
yes.
And that's where people talk about restructuring police. Like I'm not about defund police, but there needs to be accountability for these people in these positions. And for people like you in your situation where you have an entire department turning their back on you, like all I can say is I'm sorry, and anytime you need to just reach out and talk to any of us, you are always welcome to, and we will continue. If you want to come back on and tell this story once a year till somebody listens to you, you are always welcome here. It's one of those situations where, and I'm sure Taryn's feeling the same way, you're just almost at a loss of words of like, what else can I say that's going to even relatively help and impact the situation? It's like you are such a tough woman. You've gone through so much, and I'm sorry that we have to recount that, but like you were so brave to tell your story because a lot of people wouldn't. And
there are a lot of people that can't because they're still under threat of being killed if they do.
This is true. And you're very brave.
The last couple of days, they finally sent me over the videos of when they arrested him and they had him in the car and they were leaving. And they were going out and they were in the road. They were coming. They were almost to Roger's property and he's in the back, cuffed. And he says to the deputy, I had to write this down. He's like, I told Bob he had to stop them, tell them to knock their crap off, or one day I was going to have to do something back to them. That's what he sounds, this cop, when he's cuffed in the back of a car leaving.
Yeah, this man is an absolute
monster. That's what
monster.
Mark said?
Yeah,
it's on audio. I heard it for the first time yesterday, and that's why I was puking sick this morning trying to get it together, because after I learned that he says something else like that, it generally hits me the next day when the anxiety hits in, and then I'm on the floor and I'm puking, and it takes me a day or two to get back to where I'm physically okay. because he's gonna, you can't leave this man on the street. You can't leave him free in public. You can't do that. And for him to have...
What about the mayor?
He told them.
Yeah, it's like one of those he's almost confessing, saying like
he told him.
It makes me very mad.
This is one of those things where I think we're going to continue to talk about this exact story and reach out to the people that we know, because we've made some connections through this journey and see what we can do. Like you obviously have exhausted every legal route you can go, and it's just all you can do now is tell your story and keep being that squeaky wheel. That old saying is just keep being that wheel that squeaks till it gets fixed, because this is wrong. This is a man that murdered in cold blood, and from the sound of it, is scaring people off an entire mountain. I mean, this is 2020, not 1620. Like, this is not how...
I don't live in the Wild West.
Exactly. And
exactly.
Do you have anything else you want to tell for this story that like other people to hear?
I have, how do you put it? I am considered, a right-wing gun toter, concealed carry, NRA member. I went to my law enforcement because I had a man that was terrorizing a community that was one of my own. We have guns, right? And we needed help. I am not somebody that's marching down the streets, want to take everybody's guns away or anything like that. My concern is that if we don't deal with these kinds of individuals, they go out and they commit murders, and then they have another reason to make another gun law.
Yeah, strip more rights away.
Because we're not enforcing our current ones. And so we give them another reason to make a law that isn't going to protect us, because until you enforce it, it is worthless. You can write all the laws you want. You can give me all the lip service you want. But until you do it or until you enforce it, it means nothing. Nothing. And that's my big concern is I'm concerned they're going to try to take my guns away because they're going to let more people like him do what he's doing. And it's happening even in right-wing Republican counties, because it's happening right here in Klickitat County.
I live in actually a weird pocket of California that's actually conservative, but the NRA has turned their back on gun owners in California for nearly 30 years, my whole life. I mean, I come from an NRA family. We pay our dues. I think my dad's still a lifetime member, but they haven't done anything for us. And the thing is we have all these laws on the book here in California, and tearing out in Jersey too. They've got very similar strict laws on stuff, but criminals still have everything. And if you're right, if these type of people aren't taken care of properly, they're going to use that against law-abiding people to strip us more of our rights. And
then we're not going to,
Janeece, anytime you want to come on and talk about this, you are always welcome to come on here. And if you don't want to come live on the podcast, please reach out to either of us, either me or Taryn. I know you didn't get to talk to G as much on this podcast, but I'm sure she would love to talk to you. I've taken notes down. I'm going to try and see who I can talk to, because this is... It's just disheartening. It's the only word I can think of right now to talk about your situation, and it's got to be absolutely terrifying from everyone involved that a man that got away with murder in cold blood is just walking around and
terrorizing people. He's still terrorizing a community today. The definition of terrorizing is forcing your will with, on somebody else with physical or violence, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's what terrorism is. Mm-hmm. Well, what do you think we're dealing with? We're dealing with a man up there that if you don't do it my way, you don't let this, you don't this, I'm going to shoot you or I'm going to hurt you. flat out. It's terrorism. It's domestic, but it's still terrorism.
Well, and like you said, it's not, you don't live in the wild, wild west. It's 2020. People need to be more rational here. So, Janeece, thank you so much for coming on. Like I said, I'm just at a loss of words. I'm so sorry. Rest in peace to your loved one. To all involved, my condolences to all you guys. Please keep in contact. You're such an incredibly brave woman to come on and do this and just speak out and speak your heart. Taryn, do you have anything else?
Yeah, Janeece, thank you for coming on the show and telling your story.
Well, I think we're going to leave it right there. Thank you for listening, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Till next time, Banana Cats.